call the Board of Finance meeting to order, 7 o'clock. Thanks, everyone, and our virtual participants. Let's do roll call and seating of alternates. I'll start with myself, Christina Davis, I'm present. Pam Summers.
Here.
Judy Austin. Here. Keith Lipker.
Here.
Paul Varga is not present. He told me that he wasn't gonna be able to make it. And Angie DeSanto is not present. She told me she wasn't gonna be able to make it. That's it. And then for our alternates, Tim Rhodes.
Present.
Okay, and Khalid Love. I don't see him. And Hugh McKenzie, I don't see him. Tim, I will see you for Angie DeSanto per her requests.
Okay.
Next item on the agenda is communications. I did receive, just a follow-up from our last meeting, I did receive an update from Jessica Miller from the Ashford Housing Authority. You guys recall, we authorized basically extending them a $10,000 bridge loan so they could acquire a van. They're gonna get reimbursed. So we will see that money come back in. So Jessica did confirm on Tuesday that they were able to purchase the van and they submitted the invoice for payment on May 31st. And she said, I will let you know once I receive reimbursement. So we'll hopefully see that grant money come back in soon.
They had said within 30 days.
Right. So that would be the end of June, would be the expectation. I think that's it for communications. The next item is approving the minutes of the regular meeting on May 9th, 2024. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes?
I so move.
Pam made the motion and a second.
Second.
Keith, second. Thank you. Are there any edits to the minutes? Feels like it was very long ago, this meeting.
Yeah. Okay, I understand that. I think people do the burn.
Okay, I'm not hearing any edits, so with that, I'll call the motion. All those in favor of approving the minutes as written, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that was unanimous. All right, public comments. Would anybody like to make a public comment? Okay. Next up, we have our select women's update. Catherine, anything you'd like to share?
Yes, let's see, we have a couple things. School roof, we have hired the owner's rep, the general contractor. We're having regular meetings. Construction activities will start next week. We'll be bringing in the materials starting on Monday. I will be going to, incredibly enough, I'll be going to some of the neighbors around there because as part of the deconstruction, they use a vacuum kind of thing that does a banging, huge banging noise. So I'm just going to let them know that'll go on for a period of about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks, and when that will be. And that will happen from 7 in the morning till 5 at night. And it's just unavoidable when you're trying to build a roof or take apart a roof. So that's one thing. Everything's proceeding on schedule. It is an extremely tight schedule. We have also, the bonding work has been going on, and rather than what we're doing is we're getting bonds, but we don't believe we need 5 million at this point, which is what it was approved for. So we're going for 4 million. It's closer to, we needed to have the general contractor's estimates for everything in order to have the fuller picture of what's needed. So, and we meet, I've been holding meetings weekly with the school roof key committee members. And with the owner's rep and the general contractor, including the financial manager for the general contractor. He's kind of a tough nut, and she's got it all laid out, so we can work together very well. The whole point is for all of us to work together very well to get this done in an incredibly short period of time, 10 weeks. So, and the school, I can just, in fact, Jane Urban's not here, so she can talk to you about anything the school's doing. But that is progressing well, and it's a nice team. The fire station roof, as I'm sure you know, since I think maybe most of you were at the meeting earlier this week, the monies were approved by in-town meeting for the two initiatives, the replacement of the roof and the removal and reinstallation of the existing solar. So that is also about to start. I'm waiting for Paul Varga to get back to me because I want to make sure we coordinate with him on, making sure that gets done as quickly as possible. The another thing is using ARPA monies that were already approved for this. I have someone coming out, trying to remember the name of the company, Nutmeg it is, to put in the, what do we call them? Those units that will put out air conditioning and heat. I think we have 3 units that are supposed to go up in the senior center. So have them coming out.
Mini splits?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what did happen is they had given us an estimate last year, like mid last year. And it was interesting when I called them and I said, hey, look, we want to make sure that we're going to be able to move forward on this. He started to up the estimate and I said, well, we really want to go with your company. It wasn't the lowest bid. And he went back and he had everybody check their numbers and yep, that estimate will fly. So they're ready to go. And he's already sent me the paperwork.
So Catherine, so has that already been approved?
Yes, that was approved. That was ARPA funds. And I'm trying to remember the amount. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but we are looking to do those installations. We already did the installation of the new countertop in the senior center. And that takes me to senior center. As you know, the senior center, we failed a health inspection. We had a number of citations and a number of things needed to be fixed. We had a leak in the men's room, et cetera, et cetera. The toilets are too short for seniors. We're having those replaced. They're also, I think, as old as the building, which is pretty sad. That's about it'll be 30 years old next week. So there's a big celebration that's going to occur on the 18th, a picnic, and you're more than invited to come. I think it's $12 a person, but it's the 30th anniversary. So I anticipate that with the senior center, what I'm looking at so far, they're going to go over budget by about $12,000. I've been letting you know that they were going to go over budget. Part of the reason, and I can lay it out in more detail another time, but part of the reason is because while the senior center director was out on medical leave, we also had to pay somebody else to do the job. And that time that was spent on medical leave was accrued vacation, et cetera. So paying them both at the same time, which is the same thing we had happen in Park, where was it? It was someplace else we had the same problem. Anyway, so is the overage in terms of the salary monies was about, I think about 3,500 of the 12,000. The others are for repairs, much needed and long delayed repairs that had to be done. And it's everything from the stove, which was not working and then was not working again, and then had a number of issues, which I think was about $2,500. And then the water and leak in the kitchen, the water pipes that were disconnected and rattling in the boiler room or furnace room that were needed extensive repair. And what else do we have? What we will have, and I don't know when they'll be doing it, is what I would call the fascia. It's also called something else, and I can't remember what it is, but it runs along the bottom of the wall, where the wall, is a molding that gets put there. That's being redone in the bathrooms, and they've already been repainted. And so that's being done by Public Works, as was the painting. And then we have the larger room needs to have that same molding done. That'll be done by another company, and we don't have the estimates for that yet. So that'll fall into next year's budget. But certainly what we're doing, if in fact the guys put up the molding this month, it's going to be covered, it'll be with this budget. So that kind of gives you an overview. The other thing is Parks and Rec. A couple of things they've done. They've run out of money, I believe. They are working on plans for programs that will bring in more money to offset their costs. What I told them before, and the other Board of Selectmen members concur, is that the amount of money that should be brought in from their programs and everything should at least equal the Parks and Rec director's salary. The town pays for so many more things beyond that. But that is one thing where their programs are the only avenue of monies, except they get something from an organization, $2,000 a year that they split with Melissa McDonough in youth and family services. So I expect that Parks and Rec will again go over budget, but it is clear why, and part of it is unavoidable. So we're working on how best for them to manage going forth next year. They've got a strong chair for their commission, and he's following the money. One of the things they have done was they've gotten the buildings down at Ashford Memorial Park have been painted. I forget what you call that. It's not a carousel. It's a pavilion. Thank you. So the pavilion's been repainted along with a wall or some kind of barrier for the porta potty and something else down there. It was for $3,900. It was very reasonable. They did it very quickly and very well. In addition, the basketball courts have been repaved by Krukov. That was one of the ARPA projects. They've been repaved and relined, and they are being used. They look fantastic. So the park has gotten pretty spiffed up. There's other work that has to go down, other work that has to be done down there in terms of barriers so that cars and other kinds of vehicles can't get through certain portions, and for safety reasons. And some of that is to be covered by ARPA. We need to look again at that and confirm on the estimate for ARPA to put up those barriers. The estimate that we got, that was a while ago. I think that's all, because that's all the kind of financial nature activities that have been going on that I think you should be kept aware of. Do you have any questions?
I have one question, because I heard that Melissa McDonough gave her notice. Melissa McDonough gave her notice.
Oh, yes. Melissa
So
McDonough
my
gave,
question is just, first of all, I think very highly of her, and so I wish her well in her new opportunity. But I know she's got like responsibilities at the school, and like, how is that, is there gonna be a budget impact to bringing someone new in? Would they automatically take on responsibilities at the school, or what are your thoughts with that?
well, I will have to talk with the school. My assumption at this point is that role at the school and the role that she has here in town offices are both needed. I mean, these are necessary roles. So my assumption at this point in time is, yes, whoever comes in to replace her would be handling those kinds of things. So maybe Jane wants to speak to that.
I was just going to say the school definitely has really valued the work that Melissa has done there, and having her presence in the school has been really invaluable. There'll be some big shoes to fill for whoever the replacement is, but yes, we would certainly hope that the replacement would continue in a similar role to what Melissa has.
And we're trying our darndest to get that replacement here working before Melissa leaves. That's pretty critical because daily balancing and everything is something that I'd really like her to, whoever it is, to come in and be able to understand what they have to do. I will tell you that I was contacted by the town that hired her as a reference, and I could give her nothing but a glowing reference. She has been terrific. We will miss her. Those are pretty pretty big shoes to fill. I happen to know, I personally know that she has sacrificed Christmas to put families into housing that were displaced, basically Christmas Eve day. And she spent her holiday doing that, or holiday, but right through for at least 3 weeks. So she's just done a fine job, and she's been a great representative for our town. Any other questions? Other than that, it seems like it's just a flurry of activity because we do have the roof project going on. It requires a lot of time. And with the bonding and everything, that also requires a lot of time. So my goal is to get the fire station roof up as quickly as possible to get that taken care of. Oh, we're also continuing to pursue with town council. We haven't gotten an answer back yet about getting reimbursement from the solar company that did a less than adequate job installing solar on the fire department roof, which caused part of the problem of leakage. So we haven't heard from our attorney as to whether or not that's a viable thing to pursue. So we're working on that.
Okay. Sounds like you're quite busy. No rest for the weary.
No, and no job is too small for the first selectman, apparently.
Great, thank you, Catherine. Next item, I just want to give an update on the audit kickoff. So that was held with the new auditing firm, Hoyt Filippetti.
If you don't mind, I'm going to be signing off. I have something else I have to attend to.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Have a good night, Catherine.
Thank
So the audit kickoff meeting was held in May. I used the same schedule template that we've used year after year, just updated the dates, and the new auditing firm was agreeable to that. And so the meeting was myself, Jason from Hoyt Filippetti, Sue Jones is the other woman, Sherry Susie, our treasurer, and then Dina over from the school, the business manager. So all the interested parties. So again, the schedule was agreed upon. Everybody says it's reasonable, so now we just wait and see. The other thing I did ask him about, the auditors, 2 things I asked about. One is about the transfer of monies to capital non-recurring, which we'll get to later in the agenda. And then the other piece is when to close out the capital projects. So we need to basically go through every year, and we missed it like the last 2 years, that we need to go through the capital projects and say, this project's done, money goes back to CNR, or money goes back to the Board of Ed non-lapsing, or money goes back to the state, depending what the source of the funding was for the project. So we have to go through those projects. This board has to approve that sort of list, and then so that the monies can go where they need to go. And Sherry wasn't quite sure when we should do that, whether it was before the end of the fiscal year or when, and the auditor said the best time to do it is probably in the August, September timeline, which is when we do the end of year transfers. So at that meeting, probably August, September is when we'll do that, in case anybody was wondering. So that's that. The next item, so in that audit kickoff meeting, Dina Curzon, the business manager at the school, announced she had given her notice that day. So that was a little sad, because I was feeling very confident that we were gonna get through this audit beautifully. And then she's like, and I'm leaving, and it was like, oh, another moving piece. However, since that time, the school has moved very quickly, the superintendent has moved very quickly and has, extended an offer which has been accepted, for someone to replace Dina, and his name is Bob Carroll, and he has a lot of experience, being a business manager for school systems, multiple towns, including Coventry. So while I was very trepidatious on the day of the audit kickoff, I felt a little bit more confident when I heard that he'd accepted the position. And I think the superintendent is feeling good about it, that she's happy to have someone on board, particularly with the roof project and all the financial moving pieces of that. So that's that. So hopefully we won't see any hiccups because of a new person, because he has so much experience. The next item, any questions about that? Okay. The next item on the agenda is the new law regarding Board of Ed non-lapsing fund. So I will call this up. And, so historically, we have the school has its budget of $8 million, and then typically at the end of the year, they have a certain amount of money left over that they didn't spend, right? If you budget conservatively, you hopefully have money at the end. And we have had an account in the town called the Board of Ed Non-Lapsing Fund, which is something that's enabled by state statute. And the process in the past has been that they could move up to 1% of their total budget into this Board of Ed non-lapsing fund. But to do that, they needed to get the Board of Finance's approval to do that. Now, another wrinkle to it was because of COVID and a lot of school districts had a lot of extra money, the state then extended it, raised that ceiling to 2% of the total budget. And we, as a Board of Finance, did move over 2% for 1 year, but then we haven't since then. Fast forward to this year, in the whole budget negotiation of the state, they put in one of the education-related pieces of legislation, a new law that's up here. And it says, current law allows the town Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen, yada, yada, to deposit unexpended education funds into a non-lapsing account beginning with fiscal year 24. So that's the one we're in right now. This new bill allows the local Board of Education to make this deposit. As under existing law, the deposit may be up to 2% of the previous fiscal year's budgeted appropriation for education. So that means the Board of Ed in Ashford and every town will not have to come through the Board of Finance to deposit that money. So just wanted to bring everybody up to speed that won't be happening. And yeah, and the other, I guess the legislation also, in case you're interested, establishes the same thing for regional boards of ed, which I guess apparently they didn't have, where it was not quite the same. So now Region 19 will be able to do the same thing. So I don't know if anybody has any questions about that.
So in theory, that fund could keep building over time.
I mean, it does that right now.
Right.
What has happened, I would say, over the last 4 or 5 years is there's been a concerted effort on the capital planning side to utilize the funds in that Board of Ed non-lapsing account for projects at the school when possible. You know, so the roof, that was too much money. They didn't have
Right,
$5 million sitting there with their non-lapsing account. But I think we were able to tap like 130 some odd in the last capital budget that was just approved. So, yeah, the idea is, you know, if that money wasn't there, it would be coming out of,
right,
you know, the general fund
right.
versus this account
Or the capital fund.
or the capital.
So we have two capital funds now.
Yeah,
Theoretically.
one way to put it.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions or comments about that? Jane, did you want to comment?
I did actually have a question. So it says in the law that for educational expenditures rather than reserve funds for capital and non-reoccurring expenditures. So I just want to make sure the Board of Ed understands, you know, obviously we've got to put some stuff into place because we've never had this before. We've always gone through the Board of Finance. So I just want to make sure I understand the law on what this money is supposed to be spent for. I can only think of 1 year where we've actually had 2% left over. So I'm not expecting that we'll really have more than the usual 1% that we have going forward. But I don't know if you guys have a better understanding. I obviously can talk to our business manager and other folks, but I just want to make sure that we're aligned in our understanding of how the funds are supposed to be spent. And maybe
Yeah,
it's a question for the business manager rather than you guys, but I just wanted to.
Well, I did have that question too, because, you know, the Board of Ed can deposit this money in that fund, but then does the Board of Finance have to authorize any expenditures from that fund? I don't know.
Well,
I
it's
think-
the same as they've been spending it all along.
Well, but this is
But-
saying it's
but-
for, the money must be only for educational purposes.
It's been saying that all along.
Right, so that means that they could say, the Board of Ed could say, we want to spend that money on a teacher. I don't think they would want to, but in theory, that's an educational
Well,
purpose.
that would be unreasonable. and really
Right, it would be.
move, but-
Not a great idea,
Oh.
but I'm just saying, in
But
theory.
I mean, say for a new library center or something like, anything that they can tie into an educational benefit.
Right.
That's how it was supposed to be used all along. It's not meant to be a capital fund. It's meant to be an educational.
Right,
Right.
but as Christina mentioned just a couple minutes ago, for example, removal of the underground or replacement of the underground storage tank at the school, 50% of that was funded from the school's non-lapsing account, and 50% of that came from the town's account. So I guess my question is, going forward, is that still, I guess I've never considered removal and replacement of an underground storage tank an educational expenditure, but my understanding was it was a capital account that we had, so it made sense. So I just want to be clear. I think maybe we'll have to have some further discussions about how it's working, because I just want to make sure, we obviously would never hire a teacher using this non-lapsing fund because it wouldn't be a sustainable source of income. But if we had I think the most obvious thing would be if we had a special ed student move in that we had not budgeted for, this would be the perfect place to take that money from, rather than coming to the Board of Finance and saying we have a shortfall in our budget. But those special ed expenditures tend to be very large. And so I guess I'm, it's kind of a new thing. So I just want to make sure that as we move forward, we all have a good understanding and an open dialogue about how it's going to work, so everyone's comfortable with how we move forward. So
Right.
that's all I'm saying.
I would imagine a lot of schools and districts would be having the same questions.
Yeah,
Hopefully there'd be some guidance, hopefully coming out the legislature.
right.
I agree with Jane. I think that it needs to be hashed out so that everybody has a thorough understanding.
Mhm.
Um,
I would think, Jane, that you guys are probably gonna have to draft your own policy regarding it, right? And
Yes,
you'll
I
probably get
expect-
you'll probably get your attorneys to do that.
Yes.
So then at that point, once you have that drafted, that's something that you could share with us. And then we can also do our research on our side. Just like that question, to me, the question of who authorizes the expenditure from that fund, that's a question for Sherry Susie. That I would want to ask her.
Correct. And we do, our attorney does provide us with model policies. And when new legislation like this comes out, they're typically pretty on top of sending us a model policy for us to consider. So I will definitely keep the Board of Finance aware. And as you said, I expect we will have to adopt a new board policy related to it. And we'll do so in collaboration and discussion with the Board of Finance.
Yeah, I will say I did reach out to, because I found that there's a link up here, from Pullman and Comley, the law firm. It's very much from the Board of Education type perspective. And so I was like, is there, any kind of documentation from the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities on this? Because obviously it's happening in every town. And so I did reach out to them and they said, oh, reach out to your town attorney.
What?
They said, reach out to your town attorney, which seems a little silly when every single town is gonna have to do this, so. But,
Translate, there is no.
I don't know, yeah,
There's no
so
plan.
I think it's good we're aware of it. And we do have time, it's not like anything needs to happen tomorrow with any of this. And yeah, we can do more research, for sure. Trying to think if there's something I was gonna say. Oh, the other thing I'm gonna make a note of is our policy. We have a policy about this as a Board of Finance. And I don't know, are we supposed to like vote to cancel the policy? Is that a thing? Cause it'll be irrelevant, right? It shouldn't be on the
We
books.
could, so that it's on the books, that it's gonna switch over for this year, we cancel ours and it's on to theirs.
Right.
Yeah, just,
Just
Yeah.
as a formality.
or else maybe wait a little bit to see what kind of guidance comes out.
Yeah,
Before we.
Yeah, you can also, add to your policy, a historical section. Like just a little Excel portion that says, you know, your revision of the policy for 2024. And then you can write a little description of the change. And then, have it tie into the school, so you can show that it was here and then up there.
Mhm.
And that way you have a record of what happened.
yeah, that's a good idea. Okay. Any other discussion on that one? Okay, all right, thanks, Jane. Okay, next item is, oh, I can stop sharing this. Next item is discussion of chair's memo regarding transfers from unassigned fund balance to capital non-recurring fund. So just to remind everybody, when we had the auditor proposals, one of the auditors looked at our minutes and said, I don't know what the history is on this, but I question, he kind of questioned the transfer of monies from the unassigned fund balance to the capital non-recurring fund. He said, I don't know the history, but it should be approved at town meeting. So I talked to a million people, did a lot of research, looked up all of our audits and our minutes going back to 2016, because our minutes online go back to 2016. And tried to kind of find for myself, like, what were we doing? Were we meeting the requirements? And how can we perhaps do this better? And Sherry Susie as well, you know, obviously had lots of conversations with her about it. You know, and spoke to the new auditing firm. So there's a lot of background in this document. Just all that up. Let's see. There's a lot of background in here. To summarize it, basically, yes, we need, by state statute. We can approve a transfer, we're the budget making authority, and then, the legislative body, which is our town meeting, then has to do the final approval. So we can recommend it, and then the town meeting needs to approve it. So the reality is, in the past, it has been approved at town meeting, at our annual budget town meeting, because it's been in our town meeting packet. And it's also been part of our policy that we keep 10 to 15% unassigned fund balance, and any excess we transfer to capital non-recurring with the Board of Finance. So all those pieces are in that town meeting packet, and so that's why I think historically, that's how we viewed it, getting the town meeting approval. And all of our audits, I went back and looked, say that these were authorized transfers. So I just want to be super clear that I'm not saying that anything was done incorrectly, but I do think we can be more specific moving forward. And our new auditor did agree. You could dot your i's and cross your t's on this a little bit better. And he also then said, but talk to your town attorney. Because everybody wants you to talk to the town attorney.
Yeah, nobody wants to.
So I did look, so if you look on the, just so to kind of put people's minds at ease, I did include on the second page of this memo, which is up here now. This is taken from the town meeting packet, the budget packet, that goes before voters for that town meeting. And we do every year note, you know, on this date, the Board of Finance voted to do this transfer from the unassigned fund balance to the capital non-recurring, and then sends people to that capital budget. So it's in there, it's just maybe not as clear as it could be. So my suggestion is, and I kind of came up with this looking at other towns, and particularly the town of Brookfield, which happens to be the town I grew up in. They had a very clear process, and I shared that with our auditor, and I said, do you agree with he? And he said, yes, it's a very clear process. Basically, you want people to be able to follow the chain of events from here, from A to B to C, so that we are getting the correct approvals. So, you know, we've been voting. Typically, the motion has just been, we move to transfer this money from the unassigned fund balance to the capital non-recurring fund. And, you know, yay or nay. And what I'm suggesting, to be clearer, is that we make a motion that the Board of Finance approve and recommend to a special town meeting / annual budget meeting, which is what we call our town meeting for the budget, that X number of dollars be transferred from the unassigned fund balance to the general fund of the general fund to the CNR fund via line item, because there is a line item in our budget for these transfers. And then note in the proposed budget for fiscal year, whatever.
Okay.
For whatever reason, that transfer amount is in the budget, but is always retroactive. So if you look back at our documents, you'll see that transfer amount, but it's always showing up for the previous fiscal year. For whatever reason, we never put it in the proposed budget year, and I'm suggesting that we do that moving forward,
I
so it's
think
very clear.
Yeah, I think it's because we never we never acknowledged that that was one of the steps that should be highlighted to be brought to public. As soon as he said that, I was like, yeah, I've been thinking about that for a while, but
So,
we never did it. And not to say that we did anything wrong, I mean, it has been to the public, but I think that, the process itself, people probably didn't acknowledge the importance of their opinion on that move. You know, it's kind of like it was all put together in one big package and.
right, right, so we can just be, like I said, more specific in that motion. That would be the transfer motion, and then when we approve the capital budget, capital improvement budget, which it's great if it's the same night so that it's right next to each other. It might not be, but then that second motion would be to approve and recommend to a special town meeting annual budget meeting an amount not to exceed whatever that money is for the capital improvement budget for fiscal year, yada, yada. And to approve funding the capital improvement budget as outlined below. So again, just include those funding sources in the motion so that it's there and it's easy for people to see.
But there wouldn't be a separate vote on that. That would be all part of the
As a Board of Finance, we would have two separate votes. In the town meeting,
meeting.
it would be all part of, it will, because the way we word it,
Well, we couldn't move it either until after the town meeting,
right,
because some people like to.
Right.
To get the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah.
It would have to be approved and then. you can-
right, but it wouldn't be. I'm not suggesting we change the format for the town meeting, because that says like, you're considering the general government budget of X with a capital improvement budget of Y. I'm not saying there that we're gonna change that presentation, because then you get into issues with what it says on the ballot for the referendum and.
Yeah.
And again, other towns do it this way.
So I have a question too, like, does that mean that we do have to change the verbiage on the ballot so that people understand that this percentage is, that they're actually accepting this percentage to be moved?
I don't think that that's required. No. I think, it's, seems to be best practice to include your general government budget and note what the capital budget is on the ballot.
And then they have to just figure it out. What happened?
Well, yeah, I mean, everybody is responsible to do their due diligence as a voter.
All 200 of them.
Right, hopefully we
Right.
get a few more. Yeah, and so I did note here, the town meeting for the budget to remain the same. And again, that's based on, I've looked at other towns, and that's how they're doing it. The other thing I note at the bottom, because there was conversations this year of moving above and beyond what we need into the CNR fund, and I think if that's something this board wants to do, it, for sure, it would have to be, like, if tonight we decided we want to move $100,000 to CNR. We could legally, but then we'd have to recommend it to a separate town meeting that would have to be scheduled.
Yep.
And you also have to bring the Board of Selectmen into that.
Oh, that reminds me with and it's a little bit off topic for a second, but with the senior center and all those repairs, they went over $12,000. Does that not have to be?
That will be
Right.
something that we address at the year-end transfers.
But it doesn't have to be brought to the town that it went over 10 grand?
No, because it's individual line items that are under $20,000. If what Catherine was talking about was something that costs $25,000 to put in new windows, and she wanted to do that before the fiscal year ended, that would have to come before us, but because they're little, $2,000 here, $2,000 there, there's money in their budget for physical projects. So that's how that works. And then when we do our year-end transfers, we're gonna see that. That's why Catherine's telling us, because we're gonna see that number But, you know, I'm sure she's doing her homework to know that she's got money other places in the budget that's not being spent that can cover that. If not, then we will have an issue. So. So this is not something we need to act on tonight. I just wanted to bring this back to the board so you guys know that I was doing research on this. I do think there's a way to, again, I think we have technically followed the law, but we could be more transparent. And Sherry, Susie, again, new eyes on it going, yeah, let's button this up a bit. So if folks are comfortable with this, I will talk to Sherry and Catherine about the best way to get this in front of the town attorney. Because I do think I've heard from multiple people now that you really need to have the town attorney opinion on it. So I do think we need to get his blessing on the verbiage. But I want to do it in an efficient manner so we're not getting billed out the wazoo for hours of time. I want to be able to just put something in front of him and say, is this okay? And then he can say yes or no, and we can limit the cost to that. Does that make sense? I think, yeah, it'll be more transparent moving forward. More clear. Okay, any other comments on that? All right, good job. Thanks. If anybody wants, I have all these going back to 2016, because it shows up in the audit every year. And then I have the motion and I have all the things. Yeah,
I was gonna say, I don't ever remember doing that, but thank you
Yeah.
for that.
no,
It
it's
should
been,
be done because
it's been every year.
it's
Yeah,
a lot of money and people don't realize the little pieces that keep moving around and where they go and, yeah.
oh, so that topic we're done. Next item, just a quick update. We did get, because the state budget was passed. It's still up here, okay. So the actual, we put in the budget for 24-25 our best guess on what the state funding is gonna be in all these different categories, and we hope that it comes in close. And ideally, you are conservative in your budgeting so that if you don't have an error in the other direction. So we did come out about $31,638 ahead of what's in the budget. So that's good. Just wanted to let people know that there wasn't anything in the state budget that like, oh, suddenly we didn't.
Does
get-
that mean that, you said you come out ahead, does that mean that you got $31,638 more than what you expected?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's primarily motor vehicle reimbursement, which I believe is the money, because there's a gap. Remember, we have the cap on the mill rate for motor vehicles. We were capped at 32.46, and the state is making up some of that gap, which they do, but they don't always do. So that's why we didn't have it in the budget, because I think we were told that it wasn't gonna be there. And that it did come through. So that's that 31,000. The general fund, expenses to date. Bottom line is. We're at 84%. We've spent about 84% of the budget. And we have, this was as of 5/22. So that's like a month and a half, with a month and a half left to go. So certainly seems like, they're not in trouble, it's not like we're at 99% in May. That would be a problem. So I don't know if anybody had any questions about this document. Okay. And then the annual report, there's a few things I'm waiting for that are mostly kind of come out of the selectman's office. Like the transfer station report, the board of selectmen's report, but most everything else is in, so that's good. I do need. One thing that I keep forgetting to bring up is I do need suggestions on who to highlight in the dedication. So I think I mentioned last year it was Butch Simpson. Trying to think of who else has been, it's typically someone who's, you know, been a long time community.
Does it have to be
supporter.
somebody that's retired from the position or something?
You know, I don't know what, I don't think there are any rules. So anyway, I just wanted to mention it. If you think of anybody, please let me know.
Can it be multiple people?
I guess we could do anything.
Yeah,
But-
it's- Well, just like if Rob's coming on 50 years, that's, you know, it's half a century. So, and there may be other people in other positions in town that have something similar to that.
Mhm.
You know, I wouldn't want to like, you know, have one person, then there's another person that's got
Right.
that same thing, we just
Yeah.
aren't aware of.
I mean, there is, that's why, that's why I'm bringing it up, because I certainly don't know every nook and cranny of this town, so. You know, if you think of someone, or you're like, oh, that person, you know, has been doing X for a long time, you know, let me know.
We did forever, that's right.
He did, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
I understand that, Mr. Legore, Lenny Legore, he's head of the Inland Wetland and Watercourses Commission. And I understand that he's been in that position like forever. I don't know the details, but,
Wasn't like Alex Castillo on the planning and zoning?
yes,
board?
yes, yeah, and he was their clerk for a while anyway, and now he's still on the board, but he's an alternate.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
any names come to mind, let me know.
I think there was, didn't he get
50
something?
years. Well, we're thinking of citizens,
Yeah, so anybody else on the department?
Be interested.
Well, that's just, you know, got the, I mean, you got like half a century.
Yeah.
a pillar
So,
of the
I mean,
community.
but there may be other people in town, either the fire department or something that got, you know, that longevity that would be good to write.
You know, Marion Vargas been involved in like everything forever. Too,
Yeah.
but I don't know if that would be.
Or maybe I wonder, there's a woman with the Babcock band, the new guy, Vinny, has taken over. But there was the woman who was running it before him, who did it forever, like she's been in the band since she was 12.
I think that's Marion Vargas, isn't it?
Or is it Beards? I think it's, her maiden name is Beards. Cause I just saw a photo.
Yeah, she led the band for Memorial Day.
What's her
Right.
name?
Amy Beers, but yeah, that's Phil's daughter, right?
Yeah, I think it's people
Okay, well, it sounds like we have some ideas and I will ask around. It'll probably be the most politically fraught decision.
Yeah. that's true.
You pick the wrong person.
Maybe pick a duo.
Yeah.
Well, that's why you know, just, or even. Just like, when we got these concerts in the park coming up and things like that, maybe do like a special. Thing or a family day or something like that, or a little special. Celebration with. You know, the people that have really been part of the community. For a long time doing things, you know. Almost like a parade or something, just, yeah, really. Set it aside, you know, different.
You know what we could do also too is during the concerts and stuff is have a bucket. For people to throw in a suggestion of somebody that they might nominate for that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
yeah, I
good.
mean, even just doing a call for nominations isn't a bad idea. Because, yeah, it doesn't have to be, you know, this board's decision, it could be something more community driven.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, somebody more. We show up better.
Would you put that in the Ashford Citizen? That people
Yeah,
can
that's not a
give?
bad idea, yeah.
Mhm.
We need someone to dedicate our annual report to. If you have any suggestions, email. Yeah, that's a good idea. I could submit something. I would have to do it like tomorrow, but I can submit something.
It can't go till the next edition.
Well, the deadline, I think, is the 15th of every month for the next month,
Yeah.
so it would have to be. I
You
probably have
know,
to send it
another
to
person
Colleen.
would be Richie Whitehouse.
Yeah.
The what?
Richie Whitehouse, he has been forever on the fire department involved in this town. Forever, as long as I can remember.
Okay. So I will try to write something for the citizen,
Mhm.
A lot of ideas.
Yeah.
yeah, and,
That's what I'm saying, if people throw in suggestions and then you can see like how many are repetitive or whatever, narrow it down and.
and then also
You
have a
can still
list
make your
for
own
next
decision.
year. We can
Yeah.
kind of, you know, work our way through it. Okay, so that's that. Agenda items for the next meeting, July. I'm hopeful that we won't have to have a meeting next month. What, are people away in July? Anybody going away?
August.
You're going in August. Yeah, I go away in August as well, so
July.
we would probably have a late August meeting. Skip July unless there's something that comes up, so. Fingers crossed, we don't have a meeting in July. Unless something comes up from the town hall that needs to be considered. Remarks for the good of the board. I forgot it, but I'll grab them from my car. My husband and my son went to a taping of a radio show called The Middle. And it's meant to like give the perspective of the middle of the country and the middle, just like center, you know, so that, because so much of our conversations are polarized, right? And the whole radio show is about more moderate opinions or whatever. Anyway, they had at this recording of the radio show pamphlets from the, I guess there's a Jody Rell Center at University of Hartford, former Governor Jody Rell. And the whole sort of drive of this organization, with her name, is to encourage civil dialogue, civil conversations, respectful conversations in politics. So they gave out pamphlets and it just is like how to be civil. It's not anything,
Are you saying your board's not civil?
no, I am not saying that at all. But I will say that I looked at it and I was like, oh, you know, I hadn't really thought of it in those terms. There's just like, it's just, so anyway, I'll bring them in, I'll leave them on the table if people want them. It's interesting.
Yeah, I say in the middle, there's a TV show called. The Middle.
Yeah, no, not that.
Well, that was kind of like it went in Indiana, and that was kind of like supposedly, you know, like this just common everyday blue collar people and how they live and the neighbors that they had, you know.
Right,
So,
right, yeah, wasn't the TV show.
No,
Yeah, and definitely, I don't think, I think we've had a very good civil process this year, for sure. But certainly, you know, and even in this town, it wasn't that bad during COVID, but we all saw examples of people not being civil. During the heated COVID debates. So anyway, I thought the pamphlets were interesting. Okay, with that, I'll call for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Judy made the motion
so I think
and it's 8:00. Judy made the motion, Keith seconded, all in favor?
Aye,
Thank you very much. Have a good night, Sam.
you too.
Bye.
Night.
Bye.